what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the Binge Worthy Podcast. I am your host, Mr. Nate Couser. And I have a special guest host today, Mr. Kyle Jackson.
Hello. How are you guys?
He did me a big solid today and came on. He's supposed to be here later on in the series.
I'll be here.
But he'll I don't believe him because he's like, bitch, I did my episode.
No, I'm
I'm
fine. I gotta watch the movies though. I gotta watch two of those movies.
Ooh, and the crazy thing, this is spoiler alert. We're doing one on films that were first plays. And in my ambition, I thought about the person who I wanted to be a part of it, and then I kind of asked them and pointed them in that direction. But we're gonna watch some pretty good ones. And I already watched. Well, I watched all of them, but I just finished rewatching Amadeus, which is it is so messy and all over the place and just good. So I can't wait to get into that conversation because that man was crazy. That man, he was off.
I know about him, but
But today, in celebration of Women's History Month, and this is our last show for Women's History Month, but the women are not going to be taken off the table. We're going to continue to support our women in film and TV. And like as I said, once we start getting more plays, once the world start opening up, right now, a lot of people are doing more virtual productions. And the Binge Worthy Podcast, along with the Artist Exchange, will be doing a new run of some readers theory. What is going on with me today? Readers Theater. We started a series at the very beginning of the pandemic, and we kind of fizzled off. But I have a few playwrights that want to jump right back into it, so we're going to get right back into it. So hopefully, Kyle writes something because I actually want to be in one of them this time, not just pushing the buttons and such. But
you pushing the button on mine. I meant I was about to say.
Look at him, guilty conscience. But I want to be in something. We can do midnight again.
Oh Lord,
I like that one.
I gotta change it up a little bit for today.
Yeah. I mean, it works, but hey. But that's Kyle. If you don't know Kyle, he's an actor, a playwright, director.
Something like that.
No. All of the above. Recently married or eloped because I wasn't invited, but maybe the next time I'll be the bridesmaid. It doesn't matter. Or, well, technically I can't be the bridesmaid because I've already been married, so.
Oh, I see. Well, now look who has secrets.
I mean, well, yeah, it is a secret because I ain't never told my mama, so I'm telling the world and shit. Well, today, as I said, we're gonna focus on the mamas of sitcom, the funny mamas of sitcom. So I picked a couple really good shows that I really enjoyed watching. My favorite moms in TV, and there are plenty more, but I had to round it down to 5 just to fit it into the show. And I'm really excited about the lineup. We got Phylicia Rashad for the Cosby Show. We have Thea from Thea, the TV show. We have Roseanne, the controversial Roseanne from the Roseanne Show, who I still wish she would have stayed on and just carried the show. That's why sequels or remakes ain't my favorite, because they tried to remake that shit and update it, and you should have just.
Well, you know why she wasn't in there, right? We could get to it in later, yeah. But you know why she wasn't in it.
Right, and then we have the Golden Girls, a whole iconic series of mamas on a sitcom, and then I think that's it. So Thea, Roseanne, Phylicia Rashad, the Golden Girls, And the Parkers, Miss Monique. I'm a stand for Monique, and I will always be a stand for Monique, and I won't let none of y'all niggas tell me otherwise. Uh, because the Parkers, even though it was a spinoff of Moesha, it really, Monique really was, and we're not gonna act like Monique wasn't doing her thing. Actually, you know what? That's the first one. So we're gonna do the Parkers. since we being crazy like this, I can't even see which one it is. Oh, here you go. So the Parkers,
Hey, Professor Ogilvy.
right? So out of all of these people, Monique was kind of new to, acting, especially this was her first sitcom. I mean, she did some guest appearances on Moesha. That's how she got to. That's how the show spun off with her and Countess Vaughn. Starting on, well, actually, the best friends as well was on Moesha, but it kind of was a spinoff of that show, and it gave Monique a huge platform to kind of launch her acting aspect. We already knew her as a comedian, but as an actor, we got to meet her in the Parkers, and I wouldn't say that was her best performance, but she was good. She made us laugh because she was a comedian, but it did kind of give you some like, okay, Monique, all right. And she started right here in Baltimore.
Yep.
She was a arena player. She owned her own comedy club. Yeah, everybody. Oprah was even at arena players at some point. Jada Pinkett. They'll never admit it though, but once you go up on that wall, then yeah, they talk about you. You did one play and you was an arena player. But Monique is. Recently Monique has gotten a lot of flack because she's been called difficult. But that show, The Parkers, really, I think, made her a name in the industry up until that point. She hadn't did any movies yet. Maybe like I don't think she had did any movies yet. Maybe some guest appearances here and there, but I don't think
has she done Soul Plane yet?
I think that was after. After because we didn't even really know Kevin Hart at that point. This was like was that the late 90s, early 2000s that show came on. So it really Monique is just, I mean, I hope she watches this show. I'm gonna definitely tag her in it. But I really I like Monique. Were you a fan of the Parkers?
Yeah, I like the Parkers. I thought it was funny. I thought like the thing that was good about the Parkers was that it kind of took the whole it took a different tone from Moesha, because Moesha was like more like a it was more of a family oriented show, but it was like a like teenage angst sort of like girl growing up type of show. And the Parkers like took it in a different direction. The Parkers was more of an adult
I just misspelled sitcom. Look at me. Go ahead.
It wasn't like adult in the sense that they were making like really dirty jokes or anything, but I think the Parkers would geared to a more adult audience than Moesha, and so it was different. It was nice to see when I was watching it, because I was young when I was like a teenager watching this stuff. So like, watching Moesha and then watching the Parkers, I watched both of them, and the comedy was different. Countess Vaughn leaned into a little bit more of her character. But the one thing that I really liked about the Parkers was that I liked the way that I really believed that Kim and Monique's character were mother and daughter. Like I really could see it. I really believed it. It was like they probably are like the most believable mother and daughter duo on TV that I ever like seen, because they really played off each other well.
And I think that's when we got a glimpse of them when Monique kind of guest starred on Moesha. I think that's what people saw. Like they just, it wasn't just even because they were both thick, but they just played off each other so well. It was so believable that
Mm-hmm.
they would be mother and daughter. And I like the storyline. I like the fact that these women would have not been typically stars in a sitcom, even though Thea had came before them, and we'll talk about Thea a little bit later. But Thea had preceded them, but it's still that was still years before this, and
Yeah.
it took all that time for them to give another person a chance, and it had to been off of a spinoff. It wasn't they wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have been the first choice, but I like the subject matter. I like the fact that Monique went back to school and got her GED and ended up in a community college, and she redefined what you know us that stereotype was. She wasn't the lazy mother on welfare, and
Yeah.
you saw how hard she worked, and
Yeah.
it was a reason for her not graduating, and she still achieved it and pushing her daughter wasn't that bright, but but she pushed her to it was the first time I saw realistic, or what I would know to be realistic, representation of parents and parent children, or women who I was raised with. I didn't know too many Moeshas. Not
Yeah.
to knock the show. I didn't know that family structure.
Yeah.
I knew more Monique's and Countess Vaughns. I knew them. They were very relatable, and it wasn't. It at moments it kind of tiptoed on the line of the buffoonery, but it never it never got there. It
Well,
never.
that was my only thing with the only thing that I didn't like about the park is there's only one thing, and that was how Monique's character was like chasing after Professor Ogilvy.
Uh huh.
Like that bothered me, and that bothered me. I have my own. These are my own personal reasons. This has nothing to do with like how Monique played the character or anything. It was more so how she was written, to like be going after this man because I'm a person of size, and because like I know
Hmm.
how it is to move in the world. Like I just didn't like seeing her like always, even though she ended up with the man in the end, right? But I didn't
Right.
like, but I didn't like seeing her always like being sidelined by this man or insulted the way that he insulted her. He was just so rude to her, and she was just so aloof to it and didn't like. It almost didn't phase her. So in one instance, it's like they were trying to show us like her confidence level was like
Hmm.
that she didn't like take in the fact that this man did not want to be with her. But then like on the other hand, it was like this man did not want to be with her, and then every woman that you saw him date, other than her, that he was
Hmm.
interested in, other than her, was like thin or model type or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's the only thing that's sort of like I was like,
I mean, I think in the moment that was a little cringy because it said that the big person did not was always going to be second to the skinny, pretty person,
yeah,
and not even that I had those insecurities about myself, but looking at the show, that was a cringy moment at the time, but I think Monique did it in a way where it did not
it didn't.
belittle her.
Yeah, it didn't belittle her, and like that's the thing about it, though. It's all about the way she played it, and like
Mhm.
that's why I made a point about the way it was written versus the way it was played. Like she played it well, like
Mhm.
but like when you really sat down and thought about it, and like you dissected it, and you're like, me being an actor and a writer, and like I dissected from an actor's point of view, then from a writer's point of view, I'm like, but wait a minute. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
From a writer's and director's point of view, I should say. Um, but yeah, as far as Monique is concerned, I really love Monique. I want to let her know that too. I really do love Monique, and I love like the growth that I've seen like from Monique being like a stand-up comedian to being like an Oscar winning actress like that, like watching that, like I like, to be honest with you, like, and this is no shade at all, but like when I heard that Monique was cast in Precious, I was like, well, is this going to be a comedy? Like because I
Yeah.
because I knew the book. I knew the book, and like I had known people who read the book, and then like so like when I heard she was going to be cast in well, I knew Push, and I knew that they changed the name to Precious because there was another movie named Push that came out that year, but
Yeah.
like when I heard she was going to be in it, I just knew as a comedic actress. I was just like, well, is this going to be a comedy? This doesn't strike me as a comedy. How are they going to do this? And then when I
Yeah.
saw it, when I saw
Mm-hmm.
Monique, and from that first frame of the movie where she's like standing at the bottom of the stairs and she's like giving Precious the cuss the best, not the best, but like the worst cussing out that
Yeah.
you could ever get in a movie. Like I was like, whoa,
I
this ain't the
think,
Monique I know.
but I think for me watching interviews of her when she would talk about her family life,
Hmm.
and you know being molested, I knew
Hmm.
that she had
Something
the
to bring to it.
resource to tap
Yeah.
into, and she, I don't want to, further like diminish what Baltimore is, but that character she was Baltimore in
Oh
that
yeah, that was
in
that
that.
was that was definitely West Baltimore
Uh-huh.
down. That was definitely Penn North.
Yeah, she
Um,
really, and I mean even her interviews after, you know, you can tell where her source material came from. Like, a lot of that was people really say this was her mother, but she just said, a lot of people she knew this was bits and pieces of them.
well, I remember seeing an interview, and I could be wrong, but I remember seeing an interview where someone asked her what her process was for that
Mm-hmm.
movie, and she said, "I became my brother."
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and there was she also had a conversation. I think she was talking about like because I watched the interview, and she was talking about how her husband made sure to like talk to her like every night when she was coming back from filming, just to make sure that she was leaving whatever trauma that she had to tap into for that part. She was leaving it on the set and not bringing it home because
Mm-hmm.
she had to tap into so much trauma in order to go there, and like you can see it. And at the end of that movie, that last scene where she's sitting there, she's crying to unmake up,
Mariah Carey, yeah.
undone up Mariah Carey, looking like a Jewish woman, and
Who also surprised us.
yeah, she did,
I mean,
she did,
her taking off the makeup was a big step, but
but
she
but
gave
like
me she gave me social worker realness.
she definitely gave social worker realness, and she was real. It
Mhm.
was real. But like that scene, like, and you see all that pain come down, and like people make fun of it, but like the way that she cried, and she said the who God love me, but like you could hear the pain in her voice, and I'm like, she's drawing from something
Personal,
real.
yeah. So like,
This ain't like that was a performance, and that was a legendary performance. So shout out to
and her
Monique.
saying that, and her admitting that her brother was inspiration for that made the initial fallout between her and Oprah, that made that even more like you brought her brother on
Yeah,
during this momentous moment for her, when
yeah.
you brought her brother on. And it probably was Oprah saying, you know what, let's play it up. It's got
Let's
to be
shake the table a
marketed.
little bit. We're gonna shake the table a little bit.
But you didn't
Yeah.
bring her in on it. And Monique, I just remember Monique saying when Oprah called her, she said, "Oh, okay." So Oprah, she just went along with it, thinking, "Okay, yeah." And probably that was probably a part of the conversation, but neither one of them admitted it. But you know, but then she said she brought her parents on, and that kind of was like, ugh. But I know we just jumped from the Parkers, but I'm very proud of the arc that Monique had, because a lot of people are making fun of her and dogging her out because she's
Hmm.
grown, like her growth. And we both are in the arts world, and I talk a lot about um being labeled as difficult and how that can hurt you like personally, but it also affects your relationships within that entertainment field, you know, and being called difficult, it's hard on you because
Yeah.
you know you're doing your job and you're just taking up for yourself and
Yeah.
you're being trying to give your all, but when your own labels you as difficult, and I never really believed it because I never heard any of her castmates say she was difficult. The only other person, and I don't really subscribe to her, was Sherry Shepherd, who said they had did a show. I think they were talking about Precious, and she's like, doing Precious, Monique separated herself. And then I've done a production with you where I felt as though I had to do that because of who the character I was playing. And people took that personally. We just heard from Aunt Viv, the original Aunt Viv. You know, she separated herself because when you want to do your job and you're not, like, I always tell people, I don't come to work to make friends. No job I've ever had, I've ever came to work to make friends. Like, you have a job to do, and people separate the business from, you know, everybody getting along. And some people just not that person. So I feel bad that she's gotten this bad rep, but I like how she stood and she's standing up for herself
Yeah.
and being unapologetic about it. So I love this arc
Well,
that Monique is having.
what a lot of people don't realize is that, and I'm surprised Black people don't realize it, is that, you know, Black people, we spend so much time. And this is, well, I shouldn't say I'm not surprised that Black people don't understand it, because the reason why Black people are going so hard on her is that Black people, we have sort of learned, and I'm going through this myself. We have sort
Mm-hmm.
of learned to shrink ourselves,
Yeah.
to not be aggressive, or to not be difficult, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how you make things hard for yourself, being a Black person. But going into spaces with white people and seeing how white people advocate for themselves, and seeing how white people don't take,
Thank
you
you.
know I'm starting to realize that I cannot continue to do that to myself. And I
Nope.
think that's what Monique realized. The one of the things that stuck out to me was that she was called difficult because they wanted her to continue campaigning for the Oscar, which she knew, like, Monique knew she already deserved the Oscar. To me, I think that's what it was. She knew she deserved the Oscar. So, like, they wanted her to campaign for it, and they
But
wanted her to
didn't
get,
know it, but it went beyond the Oscar because she had did her American press and
hmm
finished it.
yeah, they wanted her to go to France or something, I
Right.
think she said, right?
To the Cannes Film
Yeah,
Festival.
and she
Mm-hmm.
said she was taking that time off with her family because she wanted to be with her family, and that they hadn't paid her. Like, I think she said she got paid something crazy, like $10,000 or
50
something.
no, she got paid $50,000 to do Precious.
Yeah,
And
something
look how
crazy.
much money that movie made.
Yeah, I said ten
And
thousand.
it was it was
50,000.
you might as well say 10,000. It was just 40,000 more than that. But
hmm
you know, not that I got $50,000 in my pocket,
No,
but
I
I
wish I did.
understand it. Like, the performance she gave was hands, like, they could not deny her that.
Yeah,
It was like Moonlight, or, you know, one of those
everybody
movies
was
where you
talking
can't
about it.
deny. You couldn't
Everybody was
deny it.
talking. Yeah, everybody was talking about it. It was her
Mm-hmm.
year, so they weren't going to deny it. And I knew, and I think she knew that. She knew that.
Mm-hmm.
If she was going to win it, she was going to win it because she deserved it, and not because she campaigned for it. And, like, that's when it comes down to, like, a thing about, like, do you play the politics of the business of it,
Mm-hmm.
or do you stand your ground and sort of, like, say, no, this is what I want to do. And I think in that moment she stood her ground and she said, no, I'm going to take this time with my family. And I think that was very important for her family. You see how close she is to her husband and her son, and I think that
Right. Well,
she
she
just didn't
talks
want to do that.
about her first child not being there for him, and then this time her wanting to do it, and on top of that, they did not want to pay her to do it. And it's we've had this conversation before, Kyle, and I'm not on the level of a Monique yet,
Yeah.
but I still feel so connected to that story because I know what that has felt like always being the person that is expected, the dependable one. And then when you go against that, people, and you're doing something for yourself and you're making decisions for you. And they don't understand that. And it's not for them to understand. It's not, I don't even feel like she had to explain that to anybody, but it just shows us how we treat each other. Because the people involved could have easily said, you know what? Leave Monique alone. She did her job. She didn't do all that we wanted her to do, but she did her job. That could have squashed all of this. People in the public could have thought what they wanted to think, but
this is Hollywood. And when you don't follow and do what they want you to do, that's the Hollywood monster. And like that's what I know. Even as me being an aspiring actor and aspiring, I know that if I get to that level, I'm gonna have to deal with that at some point.
Right.
You know, that's the whole game. That's the whole part of it. And like she just stood her ground. Now, what I wanted to ask you was, I'm going to turn the question over on you because I just thought about something because we got to move on. I know we got to move on to the next person. But one thing that I wanted to ask you is, maybe I should ask you in private before.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll go ahead.
All right. You know, Monique is your fave. And so is Whoopi Goldberg. And they're not seeing eye to eye right now. So how does that make you feel? Because I know you love both of those women.
I do. Again, Whoopi Goldberg.
Well, I love both of them too. Whoopi Goldberg is one of my favorite actresses of all time. I fucking love Whoopi Goldberg just as much as I fucking love Monique. I love both of them, and I don't want them to fight either.
But for me, you know what was heartbreaking about this? I've made a decision, and it's heartbreaking because it's never too late. You look, Morgan Freeman was in his 40s before he did his first movie, so I feel like I got hope. You know, at 37, I got a little hope that I can, you know, I'm getting my teeth fixed and my eyes fixed, and you know, I'm slimming down a little bit. So I'm trying to get shit together, but it's heartbreaking because again, Whoopi Goldberg has the power to say, "Hey, I'm not getting paid what I need to get paid here at The View," and somebody is going to pick her up. But because many of us are so stuck on being liked and getting that bag, we'll let our integrity go down the tube just to appease the masses, just appease them. Like, you know, we see that. I just posted something earlier about Little Nas X. It's a shame that people have to be rich, famous, and relevant for people to back them. If Monique did another movie and won another Oscar, people would love her all over again.
Yep.
They would love her all over.
They would forget that they were mad at her, and they would and she would become everybody's fave again.
It's you know, comedians, and you know, I want you to watch Two Funny Mamas. There's a couple episodes where I don't know if they're friends again, if they've mended things, but one of her friends, Kim Whitley, you can see after joking Monique, you can tell who Monique was in her life because she gets quiet when her co-host Sherry Shepherd talks about Monique in a negative way. And you can tell how quiet, and I know it's plenty of people in Hollywood that could have spoken up publicly and embraced her.
And helped her
and it was only a few of them, but they were not related to her industry, so it really didn't matter that they spoke up for her. But then Viola Davis came out and said something. I think somebody else, it was Wanda Sykes. Right, Wanda Sykes came out and said something about not being paid through Netflix, and Viola Davis came out and talked about always being compared to Meryl Streep, but not getting paid like Meryl Streep. You know, so these people, so she has she has an open lawsuit right now against Netflix, and look how they
won. I think she won it.
She won one aspect of it, so I think it's actually going to try. I haven't heard anything else from it, but the idea of look how Netflix then changed their whole lineup. Look at all the black faces on Netflix now. and on all the other streaming networks. I remember the play that you directed, and then we saw we saw Marley, and then we saw Insurrection here in Baltimore, and then all the other theater companies started including a black production in their lineup every season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that's you know it, and that even it wasn't just Insurrection for me, but it was a lot of me growing as a man and as an artist and choosing to do me and put me first, and pursue the things I want to do. And then you get called difficult. When
Mm-hmm.
you're not making people happy, you're creating enemies at that point. So
Mm-hmm.
we can go on and on about Monique. So I ain't going, you know, go up against her. So I wanna I'm gonna get them out the way. The Golden Girls.
Not get him out the way. Why get him out the way like that?
Because is I only really wanted to talk about 3 people on this list, but you had to have balance and shit. But the Golden Girls really took sitcom to another level, like Monique, changing and breaking that mold of what's acceptable. These were
Mm-hmm.
4 older women, senior women that were still working, that was still dreaming, that was still having sex, that was still, and this is not the image of what funny was. It wasn't the image of what a
Elderly.
sitcom, right? I want to say elderly, that's kind of rude, but these 4 women, for me, even being a black male watching this, it was hilarious to me, but it also showed me that getting older doesn't mean you can be pushed out. And they really came to, and all of them had careers other than Estelle Getty. I think she did more plays, and she was kind of new to this.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about 227 a couple episodes back, and she was the same as the grandmother in that TV series as
Oh,
well.
uh,
I can't remember her name, but they were both new to this
yeah.
sitcom world, and you wouldn't even have known, like Estelle Getty herself. She was younger than Bea Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
And she got into that character, and all of them made us laugh. They wasn't what Hollywood saw as the starlet beauties, but they were all fun, especially Bea Arthur and Betty White and Rue McClanahan. They all had careers prior to this. They all
Mm-hmm.
were on sitcoms prior to this. I first saw Rue McClanahan and Betty White on what was the name of that show? Mama's Family. Remember, they played sisters in Mama's Family. If you remember, you know what? And that's could have been somebody that I put on the show because I love
I
that show
used
as
to
well.
love Mama's Family.
Right, and why I like Mama's Family, because it started off as sketch comedy on
Mm-hmm.
the Carol Burnett show, and
Yeah.
it spun off into its own series, and it was so that show was so theatrical, and this show reminded me of the same thing. Like, it was so theatrical the way it was set up. And these are all I think, with the exception of Betty White. I don't think Betty White did theater, but the other 3 were theater actors, so you can tell theater actors because it just
Mm-hmm.
gels, and the timing is it's like the cameras aren't even there. This
Mm-hmm.
show made me laugh all the time. I watched this show like I watched Martin, like I watched the Cosby Show. Like, it just, you can watch this show over and over and over and over again, and it
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's just coming on.
Yeah. The thing that I liked about Golden Girls the most is that, like, those shows that were coming out in the late 80s and early 90s,
Mm-hmm.
they were talking about, they were starting to talk about very progressive subjects, and they were presenting very progressive subjects into mainstream television.
Mm.
It started, of course, with the Black Show. It started with Good Times in the '70s,
Mm-hmm.
bringing like a lot of mainstream ish. I mean, a lot of social issues into like mainstream sitcoms, and like I like the fact that the Golden Girls, just like Designing Women, was another one
Yeah, we talked about that one last week.
that
Mm-hmm.
like broke the mold when it came to like white sitcoms featuring women.
Yeah,
These were white sitcoms featuring women, white women that were like pushing the envelope and talking about feminism and
that wasn't 20
homophobia.
something.
Yeah, talking about feminism and homophobia and transphobia and all of these things they were talking about that we're still talking about today. They were bringing them up
They were very relevant. Yeah.
in the 80s and the 90s. You know, Designing Women had that whole episode when the guy came to them and they had to do his funeral because he was dying of AIDS. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like these
I
were.
think Betty White had an episode where she had to get tested. So
Mhm.
they dealt with it in this TV show as well.
Yeah, they were
Mm-hmm.
dealing with like some really like tough subject matter and like really doing it in a way that like that other people weren't doing it, on top of being like women of age who like really did not have to, they did not have to
Mm-hmm.
like include these issues in their show, because like these are issues that you think don't really affect, you know, people of this age group or whatever. Like
Right.
what are they going to talk about that's relevant? But like you said, these old women were they these older women, because they weren't old at the time, to be honest with you. Rue McClanahan was only in her late 50s, I believe, when this show came
Mm-hmm.
out. But like these older, more mature women were having sex. They were dating. They were going on dates. They were talking about social issues that didn't just involve older people, but like,
Situational comedy. It wasn't this
yeah,
situational comedy.
yeah, it was. They were talking about things and they were having deep conversations. So, um, yeah, that's what I liked about the show. On top of it being funny as hell, all like just the comebacks and the jokes in Golden Girls are legendary. Like like
Mm-hmm.
you said, you can watch it in any decade, anytime. They can
Yeah.
bring this show back 20 years from now, and it's still going to be funny as it was when it first came on.
Mm-hmm. And it was that funny. It was that controversial. And like I said, somebody had remarked that in the beginning of this series, I talked about, exposing a lot of black TV shows and films and art and actors. But a lot of these shows that we gonna talk about today, that's not a black cast. It could have been a black cast and been the same show.
Hmm.
It wasn't specific to their culture. It wasn't, it was a lot of references, like Rue McClanahan being, a Dixie loving Southern woman, and Bea Arthur and Estelle Getty, always, naming their Italian roots. But it could have been a black family or Asian family, and it would have been that funny, that controversial. It could have been the same thing, and it would have been just that funny. I think they left a impact that's still, like, Golden Girls is still coming on today. It's on somebody's network right now. I think it's on Netflix if I'm not mistaken. But it is. I love this show. Like, it was. Bea Arthur to me is the funniest person who has incredible timing. Like,
Yes.
she's still her and the Estelle Getty, who played her mother, the quickest witted. Like, the other two played off them two very well, but them two, the scenes where it was just them two, like, it was just comedy
Nonstop.
gold. Right? It was just gold, and I still watch these episodes like I have never seen them before, and I'm still laughing just the same, like as if I had not watched them before. But
Hmm.
yeah, this show is definitely something for you to watch. You can watch it on YouTube. It's on cable. It's going to come on repeats. And all of these, I think Betty White is the only one at 97, I believe, that's still holding on. But after all these women are gone completely, it's still going to be relevant. People are still going to laugh at this.
Hmm.
Every person I know, even George, my co-host, said, loves this show. Everybody loves it. The humor, the writing, the concept, the topic matter. What's funnier than four old women still having sex? Even Estelle Getty was getting it in. Like, it's just like, this is too much. I can't. But it was hilarious to watch and to continue to watch. So that was the Golden Girls. The next funny mama that I want to talk about. Now, many people don't remember her, but this TV show was one of the first. She wasn't the first big mama on TV because that was what not All in the Family. What was the one with Rerun on it?
Oh, What's Happening?
What's Happening? Because we had that mama that was the big mama. Then we had Nell Carter, but Thea was another comedian that stepped into the world, and she was big when she did this show. She was very popular, and this show brought us Brandy. This was Brandy's first sitcom.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what is
Even before Moesha, right? Yeah.
even this Brandy was probably like
13, 12. Yeah,
yeah,
12,
when she
13.
did this show. And then the other, I can't remember his name, and I'm gonna look it up. But the other son is the young man who played Michael Jackson in the
Jason Weaver.
yes, in the documentary, and he's a singer, a dancer, and he was funny. He was a great actor in this. This show, Thea, it really let me bring up there.
Did it only do one season or two?
It was on, I want to say, at least 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
I want to say about 3 years. It was very short lived. Again, another mother. It was very similar to the Parkers. And maybe, and I'm not gonna say they looked at Thea and created the Parkers, but it was very reminiscent of Thea. But Thea was another mother, single mom. The dad had died. She was raising these 4 kids. We see another Yvette. What's her name? Yvette. She passed away. Was another actress on this show.
Yvette Wilson, I
Yvette
think.
Wilson, yeah. I'm names are just escaping me right now. She was another comedian on the show. They played well together. And this show was just really, really good. Like, it was really, and you know what? Yvette was on the Parkers too. So
and Moesha.
I'm starting to think something. Like, that's where the Parkers came from. But Thea, she went back to school. Like, it was episodes where she was like, she did hair. She had a regular full-time job. She was a hustler, but she was so funny. And the reason I liked Thea so much in this, because it was so polar opposite from her stand. Thea's mouth is horrendous. You thought Monique had a dirty mouth? Thea, I used a little clip to promote the Tonight Show with Thea's stand-up. And she was an actress, because her mouth is, she talks about sex, weed, and bitches, like skinny bitches. And her and Monique, I would love to see them do something together, because Thea is still, she's still a stand-up comic, but I would love to see them two do a movie or a TV show or something together.
Is she still acting?
Who, Thea? I don't think she is, because I haven't seen her in anything since Thea. But she was a stand-up comedian first, and that's probably how she made her money. But look up Thea Vidale, Vidale. She was the queen of comedy before there was a queen of comedy. Like, she was bigger than all of them. And then how people get replaced and who's relevant now. But
my mother used to love Thea, the show, and I used to watch it too because my mother loved it, and because I think my mother saw herself in Thea a little bit. Just being
to the capital. That was my
the just being a big mama, and single mama and raising like 3 kids. Well, Thea had 4, I think. But like, like my mother loved the show, and like I don't remember too much about it because like
It was very short lived though, yeah.
and I
Because I
was
was
young.
young, yeah.
I
I
was
was
young,
young, yeah.
and but like I remember bits and pieces of it, and I remember her having like very good chemistry with the kids, and like you couldn't tell her that those weren't like really her kids on that show. Like
And
I
she
said
looked like our mothers. That's what it was.
yeah,
She looked like our mothers.
she was relatable, and I think that's
Hmm.
what it was. We had never seen a black mother on TV who was relatable. We saw like Claire Huxtable, who we're going to talk about, but Claire Huxtable was very, very.
The
She
perfect image
she was
of,
pretty,
yeah.
she was petite, and which not to knock Claire Huxtable because she was real, but like Thea was like on another level. Thea was like the person
Hmm.
that we knew,
Yeah.
coming up like as black kids who weren't rich. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like we knew Thea's, and and
Yeah.
and, and that was refreshing to see because we hadn't had one of those.
Yeah, and it, like Monique, she just looked like people we knew that was in our bloodline that we were related to. Like she really
Hmm.
did fit that image. And like Monique, like Nell Carter, they got the mammy, you know,
Hmm.
kind of critiques and the negative comments. But these are real people, especially when these shows were coming on. Single moms were, we wasn't this wasn't dad's, dad in your life type of times that we had. A lot
Yeah.
of us were single, had single parents, whether it was the mom, mostly it was the single mom. So a lot of us was watching our family being played on TV. And I think that's why a lot of these shows were as popular or memorable, because Thea didn't last that long, but it was very popular because Thea was a big celebrity at that time. She was a big comedian at that time. So for her to do this show was a big thing. And I think
Hmm.
it was another one of those shows where you have a comedian. It probably was one of the first times for a female comedian to be
Yeah.
hosting her own show and somebody that looked like her. It's only been her, Monique, and then there's another comedian that's coming out with a show now named Miss Pat. She's coming out with another show about her family. That's kind of a remake of her family, or taken or inspired by her family, rather.
Hmm.
So it's only a few of them, but they represented the single mom, the big girl, who was funny, who was snapping, who wasn't about taking that crap. And it was
Hmm.
just I I loved it. She is the shit. And like, you gotta listen to her stand up. She has Her mouth is worse than some more Monique, all of them put together. She
Damn.
had uh, Just watch her. This watch her. So uh, next up is, so we did the Golden Girls, we did Thea, we did the Parkers. Now we're gonna do Roseanne.
Mm.
Roseanne. Mm-mm-mm. It's it was very unfortunate. Soon as they start talking about the reboot of their show, I don't like reboots because
Yeah.
normally they try to take the show in a totally different direction. So it was they had did a kind of a short performance of their show on a TV show, and at the time, the young lady who played Darlene was on the talk show, The Talk, and thought it would be a great idea to reboot because everything else was getting a reboot. And they started talking about this, and then you start seeing the trailers for it, and the um they modernized the show and brought it into Trump's
Mm.
America. And like we saw on, what show was that? That TV series, American Horror Story. This guy DJ, the youngest son, grew up to had dated the black girl that he kissed when he was a child, and now they have a child, and um they lost the family business, and they are on, a tight budget, and they taking medic, like, it just was weird. And then in Roseanne's real life, she made a tweet
Mhm.
where she says that she allegedly that she said well, she said this, that she thought the woman that she was dragging on was a white woman. And
Yeah,
I
because
think she
it
called
was
her an ape or a monkey or something.
yeah, because the woman is like, is she biracial or something? But she looks like she may
Yeah.
be white, and so like I saw the whole I thought the bitch was white. Yeah, that interview where she screamed that,
But
and
the but the controversy aside, going back to the original Roseanne,
mhm,
this was a black family.
pretty
This
much.
was this was what part of Baltimore? This was a Hamden, uh, uh, Glen Burnie, a South Baltimore family.
Hmm.
In terms of it being like, it was, I don't know what now all these shows I was addicted to, but Roseanne, I was there every week it came on. I don't care what was going on in life, I was there to watch the show. And I was so upset when it went off air because I was such a fan of it. But
Hmm.
this was one of the first depictions of this type of family.
Yeah,
And it was good. And they still had, for it to be a comedy, I still, one of my favorite episodes was when the aunt was
hmm.
getting beat by her boyfriend.
Oh yeah,
And Dan ended up, like, the show opened up with Dan being put into a police car, and you like, what the hell happened there? And then we learned that the aunt was getting beat by her
her boyfriend.
boyfriend. That was one, and then it was another one where uh Roseanne slapped DJ. That was the first time she ever beat one of her children.
Oh yeah,
So it, like, I just, these shows had serious moments, but it was a
yeah.
comedy. But
There was
were there
me.
any
Yeah.
episodes that you remember?
You actually spoke about it already. The one where DJ comes home and says that he has to kiss the black girl on the plane he doesn't want to,
Mm,
and she had to, and she Roseanne was pissed
mm,
um because she was like, and I just remember her getting on him like, we don't have those type of attitudes in this house.
right, right.
Where did you get that from? And like that was the first time that we've ever seen a white person on TV get after their child or
Yeah.
another white
Where the
person.
parent was doing it and it wasn't the child
Yeah,
that was doing it. Yeah,
getting
yeah,
on
yeah.
getting on her child about being racist and or doing something that was racist.
Mm-hmm.
And that episode stuck out to me because like that for a long time was the image of Roseanne that I had in my mind. And so like that's why that actually kind of hurt. That whole controversy kind of hurt me a little bit.
That's why I didn't believe it. I
Yeah.
didn't, because the original show was so
Progressive and
progressive. I mean, you don't, and that's why in today's world, where my mind is now, even people who are our allies, I still side eye them. Not like I don't personally hate Roseanne, because I believe her when she said her ignorance made her think that lady was a white woman.
yeah, I believe
In
her
my
too.
mind, but
I honestly do believe her. Yeah.
we're in a world where that don't matter. You're fired.
Yeah.
Look at what they're doing to Sharon Osbourne. You're fired with
Yeah.
no, and she's not even the one who said anything. She was the friend of the person. And
Yeah.
we're in this world right now that we're so broken and so ready to just throw people off that we don't even want to make them change. Get rid of them. Just get rid of
Yeah.
them. And, that show, it was so progressive in so many ways, even to the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
Like,
They
if
hit on
nothing
that too.
else,
Yeah.
it was, I mean, if it wasn't every episode, it was either two men kissing or two women kissing or Roseanne kissing a woman. Like, that part was shocking to me, how progressive this and how much she got away with on this show. And she was yet another woman that was called difficult because she wanted things done. Her name was on the show. It was her name. So why not do things the way she wanted to do it?
Right.
And it was just unfortunate. I knew them upgrading the show as they did to make it more relevant in the moment was going to be a backfire. I didn't know it would end that way. I thought the show itself would be the thing. And then they tried to carry the show on without her. You can't carry that show without Roseanne.
No.
I think they call it the Connors.
Yeah.
No, it's Roseanne. And it's always going to be Roseanne. And nobody's going to watch the show without Roseanne. And you might as well cancel the show when you can't. I think it went on a couple more episodes. And then by the end of that season, it was done. I don't even think it made it to the end of the season. But it was that this was one of the ones that was like, and I kind of I wanted to include her in this, but then I was like,
tag her.
Right, because I want
you to tag her, not because I want her to be upset, but I want you to tag her because I hope that she watches it and she realizes that what she realizes that the impact that she had, not just on progressive and liberal communities, but on the Black community. Like, girl, like the black people had literally accepted you as like a Black person at some point, and
the reason she ended up getting fired because we knew who she was.
Yeah.
The Black community knew who she was. That's why I think a lot of people were hurt because for her to say something like that, and if we think that she meant it the way we thought she meant it, that shows the impact that she had on us in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt. This one was one that hurt. It really did.
My whole family, like I said in the past, like all the other shows that we did, that I used to watch these shows, or me and my mom used to watch this show, but like Roseanne was the one that, and to be honest, I didn't start watching Golden Girls until I was much older. My grandmother used to watch them when I was a kid, but like I started watching when I was older. But Roseanne was the one that my entire family,
in the moment.
My entire family was in front of the TV for Roseanne.
Especially for us in our age range. This was outside of the Parkers. This was the show that was coming on in real time for us.
Yeah.
This was like the show that we caught in real time. Even the Cosby Show, we caught up. Like, I think we probably came on when it was new, but it was, we were still too young to really understand what we were about. This show was in real time.
Yeah.
So we grew up watching Roseanne, basically. I know I did. And I'm just a few years older than you. But I know I grew up watching Roseanne. Like, this was, and it wasn't even about them being white. It was just, I think because they were like a lower middle class family.
A working class white family.
Yeah. It was relatable. It was relatable, like
relatable, and it was unexpectedly relatable to Black people.
Yeah, right. Because we didn't, and I'm a fan of Roseanne. Roseanne, if people don't realize, she has other movies. She has a movie with Meryl Streep where it is a really good movie. Meryl Streep steals her husband, she steals her family, she steals her life. And Roseanne is just hell-bent on revenge. And she gets revenge like she takes everything away from this lady. And she's playing against Meryl Streep. And you get to see Meryl Streep be funny and be like the ditzy blonde character. And you've probably seen the movie and didn't realize it, but Meryl Streep plays like this romance novelist who
I
end up
think so.
stealing her husband, and Roseanne goes to the ends of the world to get back. And it's like Roseanne is she's good, but she's one of
Hmm.
the people who, because she's a comedian, you don't really see her for,
Yeah.
dramatic roles. But Roseanne has done movies. So this was Roseanne. I The show is over, so you can still watch it in repeats. I don't watch the new season. One, because her coming out as a Trump supporter was like,
Yeah.
Roseanne, this is not your character. You
And we
tried to
know,
be so relevant that you. I can't. This was
yeah,
disappointing. It was hard to watch. It was a
a hard
hard
watch.
watch. Yeah. So last on the list, and this person, um, Miss Phylicia Rashad,
Mm.
the Cosby Show. She was the unlikeliest of funny women. Out of all of the mothers, Thea, Monique, Roseanne, the Golden Girls, she is the least one that you like comedian. But she was so good, but she was so funny. She has another theater actor.
Hmm.
That timing was just, if you're good on stage, you can do anything.
Hmm.
And comedy is definitely one of them. Theater teaches you timing, and comedy you have to have great timing to be
Yep.
comedic. And she's the only one out of all of the women on here. I would say the Golden Girls, none of them were stand-up comics, but she's the only one that was never really tied to comedy.
Yeah.
But
I
she
don't.
did
I
a
think this was like her. Like this was like her breakthrough, though, right? If I'm not mistaken.
yeah, she had did movies, but this was her first. I think she had did some sitcoms before this, definitely after this, but this
Okay.
was like her breakout, like that made her like a household name.
Yeah.
So the Cosby Show was her breakout role. The one episode that I can remember where she tells Alvin off.
Let me tell you something, Alvin.
Right. And I've seen that scene on TikTok from so different, from men, from women.
If
This
you don't drop these macho attitudes, if blah, 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 then you ain't gonna have nobody bringing you nothing. No, 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 no. I can't do it right now, but I know the
but you can
line.
hear her doing it in your head.
Yeah.
And then when she played bad cop to Bill Cosby, like when Vanessa came to Baltimore for the
Yeah.
week, for the day, like she was just so.
To Baltimore and had big fun. Isn't that what you did, Vanessa? You went to Baltimore and had big fun.
She
Well,
had
I see you
more
had
smart
donuts.
humor. Like her
Yeah.
her
Yeah, yeah,
humor
yeah,
would
yeah,
be
yeah.
more like a B.
Yeah.
She was like a B.
Shout out to
Arthur.
Phylicia Rashad. Yeah. Phylicia
Yeah.
Rashad. She is that. I still know the lines to all of those scenes. Like
But she was
people,
the most unlikely to be considered comedic.
yeah,
Because we know her to be like a dramatic actor.
yeah.
But this show, we got to see like her be the smart attorney, the quick-witted mom, the no-nonsense wife, like just
And like, and the thing about the Cosby Show is, like, like, like we were talking about Thea and Monique earlier being relatable because they were like moms that we knew, and like on the flip side,
mm-hmm,
because black people are not a monolith. They're all different types of black people that come from all different types of walks of life and all different types of black families. And this was the first time that we saw a black family on TV that had money. And
yeah.
and they had money because they were successful, not because they, had a come up or they did something illegal, but like because they were successful and they wanted their kids to be successful. This is the first
Mm,
time we've seen a black family on TV where the kids were not only listening to soul and R&B and rap, but they were also listening to rock and reggae and
Jazz.
country and
Yeah.
jazz and all of these other different types of music that you didn't associate with young black people.
Mm.
It's the first time we saw black people, young black people on TV, who, who didn't really talk like in like, like hood slang and stuff like that. They
Right.
were they were very well spoken, and if you closed your eyes, you might have thought that they were white kids, but they weren't. You know what I'm saying? So like it was the first time that we seen a black family, we saw a black family like that on TV, and I think that is just as important as
Yeah.
seeing as something being relatable, because that lets you know that not all black people are the same, not all black people come from the same thing, and
Hmm.
all of these things are important. All of those different types of black mothers
All
are
of them
on
are
TV.
all they are true. They're all true depictions of
You know?
the gambit that we run, and that's what I tried to pick shows that kind of had the spectrum. Because
Yeah.
everybody wanted Phylicia Rashad. We still want her to be our mom. Everybody
Yeah.
wanted Phylicia Rashad, but you know the thing that and we are still, everybody is still like, I think, in a place of shock over what has happened to Bill Cosby and the
Hmm.
allegations, because I have to still call them allegations, because I think there is a plot still against black men and black women, and separating us and keeping us separate and making sure we're separated and we're not on the same page. And I think this was another example of that. We're about to see that with Ti. We've seen that with Kanye. We've seen that with a number of black men in the sports and the entertainment, even in the business world. And I'm not going to argue the validity of Cosby and him drugging women, um, but I'm going to say the legacy that he helped to create, that Phylicia Rashad helped to create, in building those patriarchal, matriarchal images of what black people could aspire to. No, we wasn't, we didn't all have a mom that was a lawyer and a dad that was a doctor, and we didn't have both of our sets of our grandparents still together coming on a show. We didn't have big family dinners. That wasn't at all of our stories, but it gave me something to aspire to.
To aspire to, and to recognize that it was actually happening and that it was actually real. Like
Right.
I was like, wow, there really are black people that live like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that was refreshing to see and to know that the world was seeing a black family where the mother was a lawyer and their father was a doctor. Like we were seeing that, and they continued that sort of with the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, even though it wasn't his parents, but it was his aunt and uncle. But
Yeah.
they were still parents because they had their own kids. But like they continued that sort of like successful black people legacy, you know. But like I was glad that the Cosby Show started that, and like feel how you want to feel about Bill Cosby and about the whole raping and drugging of women and all of that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Feel however you want to feel about that, but like you what they can't what people can't take away, and this my issue with a lot of what's going on right now, is that in going against these black men, and like, yeah, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, if they did something wrong, I won't say anybody's guilty of anything on screen, because like but like if they did something wrong, like everybody else, they should pay the price. But what you can't take away from black people is the fact that we
Mm-hmm.
don't have we don't have too many. We don't have too many like people to look up to and aspire to. So whatever they did is what they did, but
Mm-hmm.
the legacy is still going to live on in the black community. People are still show. People are still, even though I don't condone him at all, people are still going to listen to R. Kelly's music, because
Yeah.
he whether what he did or not, he was still he still represented something in the black community that we
But
needed to
but
see.
separate from him, the work that's
Yeah,
out there. I mean, and this is the problem that I had with us, because white people will continuously try to erase our history, to denigrate and shrink our accomplishments and our contributions.
you know how
But
many
it
people
hurts
know?
when we do it. It hurts
Yeah,
when we choose to, if anything embarrasses us, hurts us, we can't change history. And
yeah.
erasing it will only make the things that we go through, it will only make it possible for our children to have to go through the same thing when we start erasing history, because we
But
don't
when
have a
we,
reference point at that point.
yeah, well, I feel like I do feel like if we erase too much history, then there's nothing for us to. It's sort of like, if you're when I'm rich and I buy something, I don't value as much as it is as much as I do if I'm poor when I buy it, and it's the same thing. It's like, it's like in order for us to value where we're going and value what the changes that we've made, we have to remember
Mm-hmm.
like what was there before. And like if we erase all of the history, then there's nothing to value anymore. And
Mm.
like so like that's the way I kind of feel about that. But like going back to like the whole thing that you were saying about like white people supporting their own and whatever, and that's the truth, because like how many people know about what's his name, Woody Woody
Woody
Woody
Allen.
Woody Allen. How many
Mm-hmm.
people knew about some of the things that was it Alfred Hitchcock? Forgive me if I'm misstating, but
You mean the
Mel
guy who just his name? I was trying to say his name
no
before, but
Roman Polanski. Roman
yeah.
Polanski.
Mm-hmm. Who
People
was
knew
run
about
out the country?
People know about Roman Polanski. People knew about Mel Gibson and all the problematic shit that he's done. Excuse my language, but
But their movies are still out
their
there.
movies are still out there. People still
Mm-hmm.
support them. People still recognize them for their greats and their talents. Why do we have to like completely erase our like black people from history because of something
Because
that
in
they've done wrong?
erasing that part of our creative history, we are erasing the work that Phylicia Rashad added to that. Tempest, Bloodsoe, and Rudy, and Aunt Cousin
Keisha,
Pam, and
Keisha Knight Pulliam and
yeah, we erasing all of that work,
what's her
and
name?
we can
Lisa
admonish,
Lisa
right?
Bonet.
And for me, tying this into what happened to Sharon Osbourne, I'm not defending her,
Hmm.
but her leaving that show is not going to change what has happened.
Hmm.
It's not going to change what her friend did, not what she did, what her friend did. It's
Hmm.
not going to change anything. And we got to, as black people, just erasing and moving forward. You're moving forward with that same trauma attached to you. You haven't done anything about the feelings or the emotions of what has happened.
I think people are just moving through and are moving through angrily, and it's understandable because like we're
Mm-hmm.
angry, but at the same time, it's like we have to within that anger, you have to think about it and think about like what's the best possible solution, and if the choice that I'm making right now in this moment because I'm angry, if this is going to have the impact on the future that I want it to have, or is this going to have the opposite effect? Like what's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen? And people are ready to fight. Like we're basically at war right now. We're at war. We're in a social war right now. We're like in a social and political war, and like we're not fighting with guns, but we're fighting with words. We're fighting with people. Well, I'm getting people put off of their job. I just saw a black woman had become the editor. A 27-year-old black woman had become an editor at Teen Vogue, and
Mm-hmm.
as soon as she got the position, I can't remember her name, but as soon as she got the position, something came out about her, and she stepped down, or like they said
Mm-hmm.
she stepped down, but like you find out that the reason why was because someone went back to a post that she made when she was to post that she made when she was like 17 years old, a decade
Mm-hmm.
before. This woman is 27 years old now.
Right.
Something she said when she was 17 years old, like some problematic stuff she said, like somebody said she made a homophobic comment or like some type of
Mm-hmm.
racist comment towards Asians or something like that. And
Yeah.
when she was like 17 years old, and like this got her job lost at 27, and it's like I made the comment on the post, like when she was 17, like she's 27 now. Why? And then like people just started coming
But
on
it's
like
I talk a lot about a pendulum on this show. I speak a lot about that. And we are pushing that pendulum that way. And we're getting them fired from their CEO positions and their Tom Warner positions and their Walsh. But that
that pendulum
pendulum
is
is
going
going
to
to come
fully
back.
come back. Yep, it's going to
And
come
it's
back
going
with
the
vengeance.
same thing that they've been using against us for years is now affecting them. But it's going to affect us in the same way.
You
Look
got
at
to
how
stop swinging it.
they attacked Obama. And look how look at Beyonce. Something as a Beyonce. She can't pop, she gotta be an Illuminati.
Yeah,
These are the things that we used to say about them. And now they are allowing us to use it against ourselves
and
because it's not them doing it, it's us.
speaking about Obama,
Mm-hmm.
he said something recently that a lot of people took issue with, and I really didn't, and I couldn't see what the issue was.
Right.
Um, he was talking about his daughter, and he was talking about some of the young people on the college campus with his daughter, and he was
Mm-hmm.
saying like he was speaking about I think cancel culture,
Right.
and he was speaking about like the young people and their need for things to want to be like black and white, and like everything is like you're either good or you're bad, you're either this or you're that. And he was
Mm-hmm.
like, and he urged young people to get out of that mode of thinking, and they got
It's detrimental.
they took a problem with it. But what he said was the truth, and he said it. He said the world is messier than that. Everything is in black and white. The world is messy. He was like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of really good things and some bad people, and there's a lot of really bad things inside of some good people. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to like it comes with the game, and like people, that's why people don't respect Obama anymore. And I really get annoyed when people do that, because we have the first black president, and everybody was like first black president when he was around. But now that he's gone, we can't do anything but talk shit about him because he just he's too center, and he played to the right too much, and he did this and he did that. But Obama was getting things done, and
Yeah.
sometimes to get things done, you have to sort of play the game a little bit. And what people don't understand is politics is a game.
Yeah.
No matter how much you want it to be left. I'm more left. I'm a more left leaning person myself.
But
Like,
he didn't do anything directly to that spoke to their individual dreams. That's
yeah,
what it was wrong. We see that here now in Baltimore. We have one of the youngest mayors ever elected in this state, and I think probably the country actually.
hmm,
And he's friends with a lot of people. But had he not been friends with a lot of people, they would have treated him the same way they treated Obama. And
yeah,
it's just unfortunate that we attack ourselves. Like the call is coming from in the house. We
yeah,
can't blame white people for all our problems because we have to look at those three fingers pointing back at us and say, well, what do we have to do with this? What are we having to do?
yeah,
What's our involvement or our participation in these things happening? And not
mhm,
everything is our fault. Systematic racism still exists. Misogyny, homophobia, all those things still exist outside of us. But a lot of it is still us too. It's still us
mhm,
doing it to ourselves. These shows that were picked tonight, go back and watch them. They have some really significant episodes that deal with family, that deal with the structure of a community, that deal with race and politics and really important issues that we are still dealing. And a lot of these shows, I know the late 80s was Golden Girls and the Cosby Show. Thea was the early 90s, mid 90s. Parker's was early 2000s. These shows are still relevant decades later. And
mhm.
that's sad that we're still we're dealing with the same issues now. But as we come to a close, I want to say thank you to
Mm-hmm.
Kyle for coming on
Yeah.
and joining us. Can you tell people where they can find you at on social media?
So on social media, you can find me. So I also am am the deputy editor and the host of the Bear World podcast, and you can find me um,
Mm,
at my
mm,
personal Instagram,
mm.
which
He's
is
sly.
with my at my personal Instagram, which is cusp_of_oscillation at Instagram. But you can also find me at Bear World Mag on
Mm.
Instagram, Twitter. On Twitter, my personal Twitter is also World Meet Kyle. You can find me there. And yeah, that's usually where I am. So Bear World Mag on both Twitter and Instagram, and then my personal Twitter is World Meet Kyle, and my personal Instagram is cusp_of_oscillation. If you can remember all those, but if not, just find me on Bear World
It'll
Mag.
be hit your Instagram and Twitter will be in it's in the comment section. Well, not the comment section, in the description of
Okay,
this video. So don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We Twitter a little bit.
a little
Here
bit.
on Binge Worthy Podcast. And remember, every Tuesday we have a new episode. We're kind of at the halfway point. This is episode 9. So go back to our YouTube page at www.youtube.com/C/The Artist Exchange, and you can watch season 1 and you can catch up on season 2 as well. And there's some other trinkets on our YouTube page as well. Subscribe, click the notification button. You'll see when this show goes live. We always want your input. So if there's some shows that you want us to critique, if you have a movie or a TV show or a series that is coming out, send it to us, and we'll definitely add that into our commentary. We're starting to do some spotlight interviews on some filmmakers and TV makers. So send us your materials at Scenework. That's SCENEWURK at gmail.com. Or you can just send us a message here on either our Facebook page or Instagram page for Binge Worthy Podcast. And we're here. Thank you. I was about to say something else that was really inappropriate, but shout out to everybody that continues to watch. And don't forget, this is the Binge Worthy Podcast, where we talk about the historical, cultural, and social impact of film, television, and soon to be plays. So thank you all for watching. This has been another episode. See you next Tuesday.